The following program was pre-recorded, so our phone lines are not open.
Psychologist and educator Fitzhugh Dodson wrote, "Without goals and plans to reach them, you're like a ship that has set sail with no destination." Hi, I'm Rob West. Of course, goals don't amount to much unless you have a plan to reach them. That planning should involve more than building your net worth. Ron Anderson joins us today to discuss life planning, what it is, how to do it, and why you should. Then we have some great questions lined up for you. But don't call in today because we're pre-recorded. This is Faith and Finance Live, biblical wisdom for your financial journey. Well, my friend Ron Anderson is a certified Kingdom advisor. He has 30 years experience helping folks across the country plan and set goals for financial affairs. He's the founder and president of Plan A Wealth Management based in Lincoln, Nebraska. Ron, great to have you here.
Hey, thanks, Rob. It's great to be here.
Ron, you've been a successful financial planner for a long time. You've helped a lot of folks, but it seems lately that the Lord has really burdened you with an additional passion that I'll call life planning. Now, that sounds self-explanatory, but I suspect there's more to it, isn't there?
Yeah, I would say the more to it is really thinking about what is your purpose? How are you going to make a contribution? You need to know what your financial goals are, but why do you want to be successful? What are you going to do with your time in your life if you're on track financially to make that bigger contribution that God put you here for?
Yeah, I love that. It's this big why. Let's build on that. So then what is really the purpose of life planning?
I think the purpose is to ask yourself some really tough questions. Why do you want to be successful? Why do you want to reach your goals? And if God allows you to do that, what are you going to do with your time? How are you going to fulfill that unique purpose and contribution that God put you here to make? How do you figure that out? What questions do you want to ask yourself to determine and narrow down what makes me special and unique, and how can I use that to further God's kingdom?
Yeah, it makes me think about that iceberg illustration that our friend Ron Blue talks about, that 10% above the waterline is the financial decisions, but it's the 90% below, the why and your values and your faith, that really matter. So, Ron, how then can a financial planner help with life planning?
I think a financial planner can really help someone set a reasonable lifestyle so that they know how much they can spend, helping them save enough for their future, which really frees them up if God nudges their heart to do something different with their time or with their energy or occupation. They have the margin in their lives to be able to say, "Yes, Lord, I will follow," as opposed to, "I can't afford to do this." So it also gives you another person to think your confusion out loud with. As you're talking about your goals, you can also talk about, well, I feel like this is something I maybe am supposed to be a part of, and gives you somebody to bounce those ideas off. I think you actually figure out a lot by talking to somebody about what you're thinking. You thinking it out loud helps clarify it in your mind.
Oh, well, and perhaps even challenging you along the way. I love that you mentioned the reasonable lifestyle, because I know one of the things you do is help your clients to find enough so that they have the capacity to respond to the leading of the Lord, right?
Absolutely. And be able to give generously along the journey.
Ron, take us into Scripture. What does Scripture say about life planning?
One of the favorite scriptures I have related to life planning is in Ephesians chapter 5. And it basically says, "Be careful how you live. Don't live like a fool, but like someone who's wise. Make the most of every opportunity. Don't act thoughtlessly, but understand what God wants you to do." And how do you understand what God wants you to do? You spend time with God, you think, you ask questions, and you try to listen to God's voice.
That's great. Ron, what have you seen play out in the lives of your clients as you've taken them through this process?
One I can think of in particular, they gave away a large gift, and they actually went overseas and translated the Bible undercover in Eastern Europe, and they were able to do that and fund their own ministry doing it that way. Then they came back to the States after they were done, and they bought a place to give others rest in Colorado. So they used the money that God had blessed them with, and now they're using that as a blessing to people that are in ministry to give them rest, because so many people are going so fast today.
Wow. Well, that's far more than the typical financial planning engagement. Those are life-changing, kingdom-building outcomes. I love it. Ron, thanks for stopping by today, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Rob. Great talking to you.
If you want to learn more about Ron and Plan A, you can head to planawm.com. Again, that website, planawm.com. Hey, folks, we're going to pause now for a brief break, but we'll be back with much more on today's Faith and Finance Live. Grateful you've tuned in to Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West, your host. This is where we recognize that God owns it all. You're a steward or a manager of God's resources, and money is a tool to accomplish God's purposes. Hey, we're away from the studio today, so don't call in, but we lined up some great questions in advance that I know you will enjoy. In fact, let's go ahead and take one of those right now. Let's begin in Missouri today. Dennis, how can I help you, sir?
Well, blessings to you all. I hope I can explain this. I'm 75, and I took out a loan a while back to help my daughter, and she's paying it off. And I recently bought her a car that I'm going to be paying off, and I have about $5,000 available every month. So I hope to have the car paid off like in 7 months approximately. My question is, once the car's paid off, but I was just going to take the $5,000 that I have available each month and just throw it into savings rather than go into investing and all that stuff, because I'm legally blind, so I'm not very good on seeing some of this stuff.
Yes. And you're wondering, Dennis, whether that's a good idea, or is there some other question related to that?
That's the main thing. Is just after the car's paid off, I was just going to throw that $5,000 in savings and leave it.
Yeah, Dennis, I love this. First of all, you sound like a really generous father. I love that. And do you have anything in savings currently, or would this be the beginning of your savings account?
Well, I have $10,000 in savings right now.
Okay. And how much are you spending in a typical month? What are your expenses?
Well, that's kind of hard to explain. I'm a disabled vet, so I get a VA pension.
Okay.
And the VA pension takes care of all my needs.
I see.
From a financial standpoint.
Yes.
So this $5,400 is free. There's nothing really attached to it that I have to be concerned with. It takes care of all my debt.
Excellent. Well, here's what I would do. You know, I like this idea of you putting this into savings. I would say, at least for the next 12 months, Dennis, I'd be just piling this into savings and just let it accumulate and put it in a high-yield savings account, whether you head to a local credit union, or maybe you open an account or have your granddaughter help you open an account with Adelphi Christian Banking. They're a longtime underwriter here of this program, the biggest Christian credit union in the nation. You can learn more at faithfi.com/banking. The reason I mention them is they're Christians, so you know that you're working with a credit union that shares your values as a Christ follower and supports Christian ministries out of their profits. But also they have phenomenal rates. So they're offering right now for FaithFi listeners up to $100,000, 4% for the next 12 months. And, they have a bonus of up to $400 when you open an account by using the code FaithFi. But that would be an example of the kind of thing I would do. And let's just let that accumulate. I mean, you'd have $60,000 at the end of the year, but that's great, because here's the reality. Yes, your bills are covered by that VA pension, and thank you for your service. That's awesome. But if you had a major need or you needed long-term care, we need additional funds there for you to be able to cover whatever happens along the way. And so I think it's really key for you to be able to go ahead and sock that money away between now and then. So I'm going to suggest that be your next step, that you go ahead and start putting that money away in a high-yield savings. Again, if you wanted to learn more about Adelphi Christian Banking, you could go to faithfi.com/banking. If you don't use the internet, and I know you said you're legally blind, perhaps get your daughter to help you do that, or you can call them, and that phone number is 800-347-2228. And if you hold the line, our team can give you that number. 800-347-2228, and you can write that down and give them a call. But either way, I think you're on the right track here, Dennis. Thanks for your call. God bless you. Let's go to Oklahoma. Conroy, you're next on the program, sir. Go ahead.
I am calling on behalf of my brother. He has credit card debt, about $40,000 in credit card debt with a 30% interest rate.
All right.
And he makes about $900 a week, and his payments, just minimum payments, is about $1,350 a month. Do you have any suggestions on how he could pay this down? He's looked at bankruptcy or a national debt relief program, different things like that.
Yeah. Is he able, and I realize this is a huge challenge just because given the high proportion this payment is to his overall income, because, even if he's taking that $900 a week and, in the months where he gets an extra payment, if he's saving that to try to normalize that, he's got about $4,000 a month coming in. And as you said, he's spending about $1,350 of that on his credit cards. Is he able to make that happen and live within his means just by eliminating every other unnecessary expense, or is he going underwater every month?
He has been going underwater. He has not been able to do it in the last 20 years. So,
okay. Do you think that it's possible? I mean, could he make a dramatic change? So let me ask a couple of questions. First is he married or single?
He's married and he has 4 children.
Okay. All right. And, so this is really challenging. I mean, the way I would typically recommend you handle this is you get in a credit counseling program where the interest rates drop, and now all of a sudden through one level monthly payment without taking on new loans to replace the debt or consolidate it, we're actually making meaningful progress toward the debt reduction. But that's going to be a minimum of 3%. So, you said it was, I think you said it was 40,000. So at 3%, I mean, possibly that payment comes down to $1,200 a month, but that's obviously a real challenge. Now, if he can find a way to do that, if he and his wife are on board and they're literally saying, okay, for the next several years, we're just going to double down and make this happen, either by eliminating every unnecessary expense, which is not going to be easy, but it can be done, or maybe he's out getting a second job, or she's working if she's not already, or he's getting additional hours, on his current job. I mean, getting really creative, that would be the best way to go to avoid bankruptcy, because now he's actually making some meaningful progress. And so I would recommend he connect with our friends at christiancreditcounselors.org. If he's unable or unwilling to do that, then I think at some point we're going to be in a bankruptcy situation, because he may be forced into that just because of the judgments that would likely be coming down the road against him that could end up resulting in some garnishment, things like that, when a court gets involved. Because eventually, if he's going underwater every month, the credit cards he's going to reach the limits if he hasn't already, and he's going to be cut off. And then things are going to go into arrears if they're not already, and then turned over to collection, and then kind of the process rolls from there. And there's not only the financial toll, but the emotional toll that comes from that as he begins to get hounded by those collection folks, and some of their tactics are less than scrupulous. So, I would recommend he, really has a heart-to-heart, he and his wife, and just say, are we willing to double down and really attack this? And if they are, either through cutting spending, getting more income coming in, or both, then I would head to christiancreditcounselors.org.
Okay. Can they handle this on their own as far as being able to hold the creditors and cut interest rates just to make principal payments?
No, they can't. I mean, in the sense that they would have to get behind and then try to go in and negotiate settlements. It's far easier to work through a credit counseling agency because these lower interest rates are already set. If you're willing to work through a nonprofit credit counseling agency like Christian Credit Counselors, there's no negotiations involved and you don't have to get past due. Hey, thanks for your call, Conroy. We appreciate it. We'll be right back. So glad to have you with us today on Faith and Finance Live. Our team is away today, so don't call in, but we lined up some great questions in advance, and we'll be going to those here in just a moment. Let me also remind you that the advice that I give each day on this program is general in nature. We offer principles and ideas that apply at a high level. They are not personalized, so that's why you should always seek professional financial advice. And if you'd like to find a professional who shares your values, we, of course, here at Faith and Finance Live recommend the Certified Kingdom Advisor designation. These are men and women who've met high standards, and they've been trained to bring a biblical worldview of financial decision-making. You can find one at faithfi.com. Let's go to Georgia. Ed, how can I help you?
Yes. What my question is I have been having a phone call from this collector, I'm assuming collected agent, for a bill, a medical bill, back to 13 to 15 years ago. And I'm retired now in 2016, and I have not received or heard anything about that bill. And I asked them to send me a copy of the bill and where I see it, and they have not sent me no copy. And that was last year when I requested it. And this year I requested again, and they're supposed to call me back.
Yeah. So are you wondering just whether they have the right to do that, or whether this is a scam, or what is your main question?
Yeah, if I owe it, I'll pay it.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Well, there are two things, I guess. One, how far back can they go back on a medical thing to collect the money? And then can they garnish Social Security check? So that's all I'm making now is just Social Security since I've been retired.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Great question here. So a couple of thoughts on this. I think a 13-year-old medical bill definitely deserves a healthy dose of skepticism. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a scam, but I would say don't send any money, until they provide proof. So you've done the right thing by asking for written validation, showing who was the original medical provider, the amount owed, an itemization of the debt, and why they believe you still owe it. Federal law requires debt collectors to provide valid information. And if they're refusing to provide documentation, that's a warning sign. Now, if they're just saying, yeah, we can do that, it's just going to take a little time, well, that's not to be unexpected. But they do need to demonstrate, if they are not the original medical provider, and it sounds like they're a collection agency, that they can document how they have purchased the debt, or now, they're the one that own the debt, and therefore you would pay them. A debt can exist for many years. Every state has a statute of limitations that limits how long a collector can sue you to collect. In many states, that's somewhere between 3 and 6 years, but it does vary by the type of debt. They can ask you to pay an old debt. To your point, you want to make good on the obligation. If it is in fact yours, that's great. I would agree with that. But I think the key is making sure you validate that it is in fact theirs, and that this is a legitimate organization, debt collector. In terms of your Social Security, if this is simply an old medical debt collected by a private debt collector, your Social Security retirement benefits are generally protected from garnishment. The only exceptions to that would be federal tax debts, federal student loans, child support and alimony, or court-ordered restitution. So private creditors generally cannot garnish your Social Security benefit. So, there may be a caveat to that in the sense that, if it's deposited in your bank account, banks automatically protect 2 months worth of directly deposited benefits. But if you've mixed those with other money or allowed them to accumulate beyond that, it can become more complicated. But I would just say, if this is a 13-year-old debt, I would wait for that validation and then proceed from there.
Okay. I appreciate it. I won't go pay my bills and
yes, sir.
Pay it. I went to the hospital and checked with them, the financial department. And from 2000 up to now, I owe nothing to them. There is no debt outstanding with them. So I'm assuming they had to sell the debt to somebody else. I don't know. There's so much scam out there. I just want to make sure.
Absolutely, and you're doing the right thing here, Ed, because again, if the medical provider is saying that account was paid in full or there's a zero balance, I would proceed with a lot of caution before you do anything. Don't admit, to owing it, and let's make sure they can provide some documentation that you could also verify with that original medical provider. And until that time, I just kind of sit on that. Hey, we appreciate your call today. God bless you. Lucille is in Illinois. Go right ahead.
Thank you so much for taking my call. I have an opportunity to do a 3-year special catch-up.
Yes.
So I'm going to be able to contribute like double what you contribute. I'm 58. And I was wondering, what should I be considering? Should I just do it all as 457? Or because within the 457, I have an opportunity to invest some of that as Roth. I don't have a lot of balance on my Roth account. What should I be considering to split it? Or am I better off doing all of it as deferred?
Yeah. I've mentioned before there was a study done by some researchers that looked at thousands of actual retirees to determine what is the optimal mix between tax-free and tax-deferred retirement accounts once they got to retirement and started drawing it down. And what they found is, and this was just based on the study they did, that the optimal scenario was if you take your age and you add 20 to it, so you're 58, add 20 to it, that's 78, that would be the portion you should put in traditional, and then you put the rest in the Roth. And the idea was that you're probably at the peak of your earnings years, so you could really benefit from the deduction. But the fact that we don't know what tax rates are going to be in the future, you at least want something going into Roth. So whether you do 80 to traditional or 70, I think somewhere between 70 and 80 to the traditional and 20 to 30 to the Roth is probably, at least based on this study, an optimal scenario for you. I hope that helps, Lucille. Thanks for your call. Back after this. Stay with us. I'm so thankful you're joining us today on Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. Hey, just a quick reminder, our team is away from the studio today, so don't call in. But in just a few moments, we're going to get to some questions that we lined up in advance that I know you'll find very interesting. But let me take a moment just to invite you first to be a supporter of this ministry here at FaithFi. We bring you this broadcast every day as a listener-supported ministry only because of your generous support. So maybe you listen regularly. Perhaps you count on this program. Maybe you've been able to apply some of the wisdom from God's word that you've heard in your financial life, or it's just helped you to be that wise and faithful steward, and you'd like to be a part of our team. Well, one way you can do that is by investing in this work through a one-time gift or even by becoming a FaithFi partner. I just invite you to join us on this journey when you head to faithfi.com and click Give. A gift of any amount would be a big help. Again, that's faithfi.com and just click Give. And let me say thank you in advance. Your gift will make a huge difference. Now let's head back to the phone calls we have lined up. Let's head to Mississippi. Roy, how can I help?
Yes, I listen to you guys a lot. I have a goofy kind of question. My son has started a plan through his own efforts with the various securities out there that he's been involved with for several years. And he was giving me a list of some of the stocks, Amazon and Cisco, all kinds of tech stuff. And he's garnered about $1 million doing this, but he's asking me if I'm interested in joining and throwing the money I have into his plan. And he jokingly, he says, I want people that like to not spend money. And I'm kind of throwing that around in my mind. The thing that concerns me, or one thing anyway, is he's not a real strong Christian. And the other is what might be the plus and minuses of putting my money in a joint account with him and other friends of his, and like his son and his daughter and and that kind of thing. And he's curious if I want to throw my 401 in there. And I know there's going to be penalties if I do that. So what might the penalties be?
Yeah. Well, yeah, a lot there. Let's kind of walk through this. There wouldn't be any early withdrawal penalties, but you could trigger a massive tax consequence by pulling that money out of the 401k, because it would all be added to your taxable income in the year that you withdraw it as ordinary income. And so, that could certainly push you up into a higher tax bracket. It means a pretty big bill, and you lose that tax deferred growth moving forward. So I wouldn't recommend that. I also want to just encourage you to be cautious here. Whenever family and investments intersect, I think at the very least it's wise just to proceed with caution and slow down, because you certainly want to understand the risks, the liquidity, meaning if you change your mind, can you get out, the fees, and whether this investment is appropriate for your stage of life. The last thing we would want is for this to, go a direction other than what you expect or he expects. I'm not saying he's trying to do anything disingenuous here, but when it comes to investments, it's going to be beyond his control, the ultimate outcome. And I think, the last thing we would want is some sort of relational collateral damage here, or for you to be in a position where you have harmed yourself financially, moving forward, given that this is your nest egg. I appreciate your desire to be supportive and not turn him down. And yet at the same time, this is a pretty significant decision with real tax implications and real sustainability, because your biggest risk in this season of life is what's called longevity risk, that you could outlive your money, especially if, you take more risk than is appropriate and you lose some of it. Do you know what type of investment this is? Is it a private investment, or is it something that's publicly traded on the stock market?
It's private. He doesn't trust anyone else out there. So it's all money he's invested over the years, and we were with the S&P for a while, but he got out of that, and of course he's regretted doing that now. But it's mainly just a private individual kind of thing he's created himself.
Yeah. And that just adds more risk. Not that he's not skilled as an investment selection, person, as a stock picker, so to speak. But whenever you go into a private investment, there is less regulation. Often, these private investments lack any liquidity. And so, your ability to get out of it is going to be significantly less. So, I would stay away from this. I mean, if you wanted to go into it, again, I'd want to try to keep it inside the retirement structure, the pre-tax structure, which would mean that you could use what's called a self-directed IRA. You could do a search on that. You'd have to find a self-directed IRA custodian, and they would often allow you to invest. But I would keep it probably no more than 5% of my investment. Just because, again, this is not the season of life for you to both mix family and money, and especially in a private investment. The ownership structure, the liquidity, the creditor risk, just all of these things, potential family conflict are a big downside. In terms of a joint tenancy situation, I would stay away from that as well. That's going to create gift tax considerations, estate planning issues. It just adds a whole lot of complexity unnecessarily. So I would just keep everything in your name alone. I would probably encourage you just to avoid this altogether. But if you did do it, I would do it only, no more than 5%, and I would use a self-directed IRA to keep it in that tax-deferred environment.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much. I just wanted to get your position on that kind of thing. I know the difficulties with family. You never think anything's going to crop up, and yet it always seems to rear its ugly head at some point. But thank you again.
Unfortunately, it does, but I appreciate you, Roy. Thanks for calling today. Let us know if we can help further along the way. Let's go to, let's see, we'll head down to Louisiana. Ann, how can I help?
Hi. I have a problem that I've been trying to look into. I needed some more Social Security quarters to start withdrawing my Social Security. I need 12 more quarters. So I got a little job as a household manager. Now, my problem is I'm trying to figure out, should I be hired as an hourly employee, a household employee, or an independent contractor with hourly pay? And I know there's such thing as nanny taxes, and how would the IRS look at this position, and what should I do?
Yeah, great question. So as you look at this, the key issue is that the job classification should reflect the actual working relationship, not which choice produces more Social Security credits. So if your goal is to earn credits, you need to make sure your wages are properly reported and that Social Security and Medicare taxes are paid. Whether you're an employee or an independent contractor really depends on the nature of the job, not necessarily which one you'd prefer, but in either case, you can achieve those credits as long as it's reported and taxes are paid properly. Hang on the line, we'll talk a bit more. Just a quick reminder, we're not here today, so don't call in, but we're going to head to a break and much more coming just after this. Stay with us. Thanks for joining us today on Faith and Finance Live. Here in our final segment of the broadcast today, let me remind you, our team is not here, so don't call in, but we lined up some great questions in advance. We'll get to those in just a moment. Before we do, let me remind you, if you haven't downloaded the FaithFi app, we'd love for you to check it out. It's got 3 sections in it. The first is the money management system based on Larry Burkett's digital envelope system. It helps you manage God's money in a way where you know exactly what's left in each envelope at any point during the month. There's also our Learn tab where you can access the best content in biblical finance to grow in your understanding of God's way of handling money, and our community where you can post questions, get comments, and ideas from other stewards on the journey. So download it today on our website, faithfi.com. Just click app. Before the break, we were talking to Ann in Louisiana. She's looking to achieve the number of credits necessary to be entitled to a Social Security benefit. She's not quite there yet. And she has recently engaged as a household manager, or is about to, is wondering how should she structure that to be sure that she earns Social Security credits. And I was saying before the break, and that really the relationship between you and this person who's asking you to become a household manager is not as much about getting the credits and really more about what is the right job classification that reflects the actual working relationship. So, if you are, just working for one employer and they're controlling what work is done and how it's done, then that's going to be a household employee. They would need to withhold and pay the Social Security and Medicare, and those wages would count. If you're truly operating independently and you set your own methods, you serve multiple clients, you're controlling how the work is performed, well, then that would be in line with an independent contractor relationship, but you'd have to pay the self-employment tax, but that would then also earn Social Security credit. So, the relationship you have and some of those key factors, like one or multiple, relationships and whether you control what you do and your hours and so forth, or they do, is ultimately what's going to determine the relationship that you have. But does that all make sense?
Yes. The thing is, I want to work as an independent contractor, but I only have one client. Would that catapult me into the employee category?
Yeah, so that's going to be a challenge there, because I certainly understand that you want to be independent, because then you can take advantage of the deductions and so forth of being self-employed, although you would have both sides of Social Security. One client doesn't automatically disqualify you. I would just say, you can have one client and still be an independent contractor, but the IRS is primarily going to look at who controls the work. So if you decide how the work is done, you provide your own tools, you set your own schedule, you operate independently, you may qualify as an independent contractor. If, on the other hand, the family directs your work and your hours and your methods, you're more likely a household employee. So I would, get with a CPA who can really just evaluate your situation here and advise you on how to set it up. If you decide to go, and the CPA believes you can be recognized as an independent contractor based on your working relationship, then you're going to want to make sure you keep separate books and that there's a clear line between your personal finances and your business. That's going to ensure that you are able to deduct business expenses without being challenged by the IRS. But you've got to be able to document things separately between your personal and your business activities.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. Do you know any, maybe off the air, you all can recommend a certified Kingdom advisor here in the Louisiana area for me?
Yeah, if you go to findacka.com, you could find a certified Kingdom advisor, and then you could ask for a referral to a small business accountant or CPA. They would all have one that they typically work with. So just go to findacka.com. You can do a zip code search. And thanks for your call today. Lord bless you. Let's go to Philadelphia. Hi, John. How can I help?
Yes. Hello. This is an IRS question and an IRA question. My wife has an IRA, and we take out required minimum distributions each year. Last year, among the 15 or 20 that we took out, one went to our church. And initially, our church did not want a receipt for a required minimum distribution. We went back to the church and said, well, we would need a letter saying the church was a 501c3. We got that. And then we sent the check to them again, and the church came back a second time stating, in all capital letters, they acknowledged receipt of the required minimum distribution, but they would not accept it as a tax-deductible contribution, and it could not be reported on the tax form. And, all of the other 501c3s either receipted it or receipted it as being received from a required minimum distribution. What's the tax law, actually?
Yeah, interesting. I'm not sure why they're saying that because so was this a qualified charitable distribution? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, here's what they might be referring to is, see, the idea behind the qualified charitable distribution is you don't get to double dip. So the benefit here is that the amount coming out of the IRA and going to the charity is excluded from your taxable income, which every other distribution from an IRA is included in your taxable income for the year, except a qualified charitable distribution. So the benefit to you is you get to exclude it and not add it to your taxable income from the year. You do not, though, get to also take it as a charitable deduction. And so that's probably what your church is referring to, is they're just, and this is ultimately not between you and them, it's between you and the IRS. So they really don't have a say in this. But what they're probably trying to do is just make sure you're clear that as that money comes out, you already got the benefit by it not being added to your taxable income for the year, which hopefully allowed you to give more because you didn't have to worry about the tax liability, but you do not then to get to add on top of that a charitable deduction against federal income tax. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I appreciate you taking your time, and I do appreciate your show, and the Lord bless you.
Okay. God bless you, John. I love the idea of the qualified charitable distribution. I think you were right on to do it. And again, it's the only way to get that money out of that IRA and not have any tax liability associated with it. But yeah, at that point, though, it does not qualify as a charitable contribution for a further tax deduction. We appreciate your call. Call anytime. We'll go out to Texas, Virginia. How can I help?
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. You're such a wonderful blessing.
Thank you.
I have a student loan that I did not pay on for a while, so it has some unpaid interest. But I have now been making payments, and I've been squirreling money away, and I'm able to pay off that interest, the outstanding interest, so that, because I need to do that right before my payments will even touch the principal. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, so, if you have the opportunity to pay down accrued interest, that can definitely be a wise move because it reduces the amount of interest that may continue to accumulate. I would say, that's generally a good idea. Are these federal or private student loans?
Federal.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And so is your plan to pay off the accumulated interest and then just keep paying on them, monthly, or what are you thinking moving forward?
Yes. Yeah. So now that the deferments have been lifted, I was going to make payments anyway, but definitely start making payments, continue to make payments monthly. But I noticed when I called them also, they had said that, if I just make, say, $200 a month, it's not really going to, because I have so much interest accrued, it's not even going to bring down any of the principal. I'm really just paying off the interest, because that's where, when I send in a payment, they first send it to the interest.
Yes. And that's why you want to do this. And so I think going ahead and paying off that accrued interest, well done on putting that money aside and having the ability to do that. And now I think from here, once you get that down, obviously if you can send a little extra every month, great. But at the very least, let's get that accrued interest from the deferment out of the way and then get you, paying on a monthly basis. And again, if we can add something to it, that would be excellent.
Okay. And then one other quick question. Someone had told me that what they did with their child had a student loan is they refinanced it through SoFi as a personal loan. And they were telling me that I should do that, but I feel safer to have it as a federal, I don't know, just kind of feel like it's just to keep it as a federal loan. They're at 6 and 7%, because I have two different loans that have been federal loans that are consolidated. So one's at 6% and one's at 7%. And then when I went onto the SoFi just to check it out, they don't even let you see any sort of percentages. You have to give them all your information, date of birth and all that, and I didn't want to do that. So
well, here's the thing. I'd be very cautious about that because you're going to give up those valuable federal benefits if you need them down the road, like income-driven repayment, for deferment, forbearance. You've already taken advantage of it. If you needed it again in the future, you'd lose that. And you're likely not going to get a meaningfully lower interest rate on a personal loan without any kind of collateral that would justify it. So I would just stick tight with what you've got on the federal side.
Thank you. Yes, the confirmation. God bless you, Rob.
All right. Thank you, Virginia. I appreciate it. Hey, Faith and Finance Live is a ministry of Faith Fi and Moody Radio. Thanks to my team today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Come back and join us then. Bye-bye.